We are following breaking news here on CBS Sports HQ. The New York Knicks have fired Dave Fizdale per ESPN. Knicks are 4-18. That's the worst record in the Eastern Conference. And Fizdale just 21 wins after signing a $22 million contract. Still has about $2 and change left on his deal. And for more on this breaking news, let's bring in Tim Doyle, our basketball analyst here. Tim, what do you make of the news here on Friday, David Fizdale out of a job?
You know, it just makes me think back to what Chris Carter said, get a fall guy. He's the fall guy. Scott Perry, the general manager, Steve Mills, who's a friend of mine, is running the organization. They had to pick somebody. And the Knicks have not done, let's just say, fantastic in the draft. Probably their best draft pick over the last couple of years is Kristaps Porzingis. And they traded him for Dennis Smith Jr., who's riding the pine. So it's just an organization right now that is a complete mess. There's no other way to say it. So David Fizdale is well respected amongst NBA circles. It's ironic that here's a guy who probably could have waited, been the Lakers coach alongside of his friend, LeBron James, or could have had the Suns job. And now Phoenix is competing in the Western Conference. Instead, chooses to take the Knicks job. And I get it. Hey, I did it. I went to St. John's because Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena, there's nothing else like it in all of basketball. But now, you know, the real problem is ownership. You know, all those free agents, and who do they land? Julius Randle, Bobby Portis? Because the whole foundation, the ownership there, is a place that free agents say, yeah, we get to play on Madison Avenue, Park Avenue, whatever you want to call it. It's actually none of those streets. It's actually down the street from there. But all the limelight of the Garden, but this is an organization that's just going in the wrong direction. Carmelo went there and had 150-win season. So this whole thing is a mess. I think Fizdale becomes the latest scapegoat. Tommy, how many coaches have they had?
Oh, my gosh, so many.
I mean, it's like crazy. Like, the only thing Phil Jackson did well was draft Kristaps Porzingis, and he's gone. So this place is a mess. I mean, they're getting embarrassed on a nightly basis. I mean, it's sad to see for a kid that grew up in New York City and, you know, followed a team that had an identity. I think that's the biggest thing. You know, you look back at those Knicks teams or any teams that win, those Knicks teams had an identity. They were physical. They were tough. They played with an edge, a chip on their shoulder. You know, I know the game has changed as we take a look at all the different coaches that have come through the woodwork there, but there's no identity to what this team does. And I think the final straw for Fizdale was when they did not get the number 1 pick or the number 2 pick. If they would have got John Morant, at least there would have been some signs of life. Tommy, I had my doubts with RJ Barrett. He has struggled. He struggled from 3. Heck, he has struggled from the free throw line. And this is the rookie that's going to turn your organization around. As a New Yorker, it's sad to see that this is an utter mess.
There's a lot to unpack here. You mentioned things like identity, which we'll get to as well. You're talking about, you know, teams that have a process like Philly. They have a plan that they tank or don't do well, and it doesn't seem like New York had that. You mentioned Steve Mills. So since he came on in 2017, you're talking about what? Phil Jackson, Jeff Hornacek, and now David Fizdale. 50 wins for $51 million for these coaches to sit out. So my next follow-up then is, if you are a prospective head coach, how do you view this organization? How do you take this job with any kind of faith that you will have a chance to win?
Great question. You know, David Fizdale, I was reading articles that he passed on the Suns job. You know, the Suns are actually trending in the right direction. They went and hired Monty Williams, and they're playing great basketball. It also gets me thinking about when Phil Jackson took over the Knicks, his number 1 target, the guy that was going to be on the sideline, was Steve Kerr. Steve Kerr was who the Knicks really wanted from day one, and he was like that close to taking the job. Talk about one of the great decisions in the history of sports, not taking the Knicks job and then taking the Warriors job, and now he's considered one of the greatest NBA coaches of all time. Between you and me, Tommy, we could have won a lot of games coaching that team with all those superstars there. But now, yes, this becomes a job where, is it just a money grab? Like, do you just say, I'll just go take the next job and go make $4 or $5 million a year, and then they're going to fire me? You know, Jeff Hornacek, Phil Jackson, David Fizdale, all those guys are going to get their money from ownership. It is just sad to see that I think one of the best jobs in the entire NBA has now turned into arguably the worst job in the NBA.
One of the premier franchises and one of the premier markets in the country, again, going through some changes here, firing David Fizdale. Our thanks there to Tim Doyle. We are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll continue this breaking news. Again, the Knicks firing David Fizdale 2 seasons in. He still had 2 and change left to go. Avery Johnson, our NBA analyst, joins us next on HQ.